All right, everybody, welcome back to Horn Takes. It's opening day in the MLB, so no better day than today to do another edition of the Bullpen. Texas adds to the nation's longest winning streak with a series sweep over Texas Tech and a midweek win over Texas A&M down at College Station. Texas Tech, so we've talked about it all season. The team's been struggling, and then the team got home. And then the team started winning a lot of games in a row, and we didn't quite know whether this team was winning because of the competition they were playing or whether they were winning because David Pierce had finally found that right mix in the lineup and that right mix for the pitching staff. And we talked about how this stretch of Texas Tech, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma State coming up this weekend were going to be big keys for us to understand what Texas can really be capable of going through the rest of the season. So Texas Tech comes into Austin last weekend, ranked number 14 in the country, sitting on top of the Big 12 standings. Really potent offensive team. Surprisingly, for a Tech team, really good pitching as well. And Texas absolutely... Well, they didn't absolutely destroy them, but Texas swept Texas Tech. They won the first game 6-2. That game was never really in doubt for Texas. Tech never really was in that game in terms of threatening late to win the game. Lucas Gordon pitched a really good game in that game. Again, gets a no decision because the bats kind of let him down early on. Zane Morehouse comes in late in the game to finish that game out and got the win. 12 strikeouts between those two. They did a pretty good job shutting down that potent offensive lineup for Tech. And matter of fact, the Texas pitching staff did a good job of that all weekend. Following that first game where Texas sort of got control of the game about midway through the game and never really relinquished. The next two games, the Saturday and Sunday game, were just really wild games. Game two, it comes down to a wild pit. And both of these games are games where Texas gets the lead and looks like they have opportunities to build on the lead, and they just never really do it. Never do it enough to get Tech out of the game, I guess is the best way to put it. But in game two, there was a wild pitch that Porter scored on. Porter Brown. He led off that bottom of the ninth inning with a double, moved to third base on a balk. And then I think it was like the very next pitch. The Tech pitcher threw a wild pitch, and Porter Brown scored and won the game for Texas. Zane Morehouse picked up his second win of the series in that game because he came on late in that one as well. And then in the Sunday game, I think Sunday game was kind of the wildest game. Texas built a pretty big lead early on. They got up 8-3. It was 8-3 heading into the eighth inning. And then they gave up 4 runs in the top of the eighth and then another run in the top of the ninth to tie it. And it kind of looked like Tech had really seized the momentum. Texas bullpen was kind of running out of arms and just, not looking really good, giving up some walks and things like that. And then here comes Guillemette, steps in as the first batter in the bottom of the ninth and just absolutely slaps one over the bullpen out in left field. And that's a pretty good shot. I saw a measurement that ball went 417 feet, so he definitely got a hold. As soon as he hit it, if you've seen many home runs, you knew that ball was gone. Whether you were watching it on TV or whether you were sitting there at the park, it was a blast. I thought the pitching overall in this series for Texas was just absolutely outstanding. Tech had been averaging over 10 points per game coming into this series, and they only managed 15 the entire series against Texas. And really, I know you can't take innings away, but if you took away those last 2 innings where the Texas pitching just really fell flat, they only gave up 11 runs. So either way, 15-11, that's really good when a team averages 10 runs a game. They used a lot of arms out of the bullpen. I can't think of a single person in that bullpen that didn't pitch in this game. I thought they'd run out of steam on Sunday, especially late. They didn't, although they did give up the lead. But, again, they did just enough pitching-wise, even with the arms that weren't the best arms coming out of the bullpen, to get that W. Offensively, Texas got production from a lot of different guys. It was kind of a different group every single game in that series. Game 1, the middle of the order did all the damage. Brown, O'Dowd, and Mitchell Daly each had 2 RBI apiece. In Game 2, Dylan Campbell, Porter Brown account for 2 RBI each and combined for 5 of 7 on the night at the plate. Rylan Galvan had a solo home run in that game. I believe he caught that game. Guillemette and Galvan have been in the lineup together over the course of the last couple weekends. They're both catchers, and so sometimes Guillemette gets a breather behind the plate and Galvan will catch. I believe he caught that second game. Game 3, we saw a Peyton Powell resurgence. Peyton Powell has been on an absolute tear ever since they got back to Austin, I think. Once they left Cal State Fullerton, came home, Peyton Powell's been killing it. And he kind of had a rough couple games to start out this series. He was making contact, just wasn't getting on base. But he went 3 for 5 in this third game with 2 solo home runs and 4 RBI. Guillemette, who hit the walk-off to end it, Thomas and Galvan each had solo home runs. So Galvan had 2 solo home runs in this series. So offensively, I thought, the team did really well against a pitching staff that has been good this year. You go look at the numbers, they're not great for Tech, but they're very good. Porter Brown was named the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week. That week, he batted .615 for the week. He had 2 doubles, 2 home runs, and 8 RBI. I think Porter Brown is a guy that I mentioned it earlier in the season. I said, man, he's been a really good pickup for Texas. And then he had some time. It was almost immediately after I said that. There was this stretch of time where he didn't do so hot, and he struggled out in the field a little bit. And he still does. He makes things look interesting in left field all the time. Really routine plays don't look so routine all the time, but he has certainly 100% been a plus pickup offensively from TCU. So Texas wins that series 3-0. Great start for Texas heading into, again, the middle of this stretch where I think a lot of people, and I certainly felt like, if Texas can show that they can compete with these guys, then maybe all the early season woes and prognostications about them not being a very good team, maybe they're wrong. So they head into this midweek with Texas A&M. Texas A&M entered the game reeling a little bit. They'd lost 5 of their last 7. Of course, they did have to play 2 series with LSU and Tennessee, so it's not like they played some scrubs. They were unranked heading into this game after being the preseason top 10 in every poll I saw. I think in D1 baseball, they were ranked number 6 to start the season. Came into this one unranked. Conversely, Texas came in with the nation's longest winning streak at 14 games, ranked in the top 25 for the first time in the season, and sitting atop of the Big 12 standings at 3-0. It wasn't a pretty game for Texas, and they beat the ball up. They had 15 hits in this game. Didn't play a lot of runs, and part of the reason they stranded 15 base runners. So despite 3 errors, 15 base runners stranded, Texas was able to scatter those 15 hits and get a win 5-2. I thought the pitching, again, in this game was really, really good. There's some guys on that A&M lineup that can hit. And I thought, aside from the base running, or stranding the base runners, 15 of them. It's crazy. There was one stretch of 3 innings where it was like 9 base runners had been stranded. A&M got out of bases loaded with no outs without giving up a single run. Outside of that, I thought it was a really good showing for Texas. LBJ got the win for Texas. Morehouse with the save. So Morehouse having a hell of a run so far these last few weeks. 2 wins on a weekend series with Tech, and then a save against Texas A&M. It was all the top of the order offensively. And I think you look at the season, there's guys from 4 or 5 down that contribute. They do some things, but consistently the top 4 guys are just absolutely great right now. And I don't want to say they're great. They're really, really good right now. Kennedy went 4 for 6 in this game. Powell went 3 for 4. Campbell went 2 for 4. And then Porter Brown again with 3 RBI that did the most damage from a run batted in perspective. So a really good win for Texas. Hasn't won in College Station. Some I'm assuming Aggie friendly Houston Chronicle guy had a title call that said Texas beats Texas A&M for the first time in 12 years in College Station, which is true, but it's not like they play every year. But Texas A&M has won 3 of the last 5 against Texas, I believe, coming into the game Tuesday night. So they've had the best of it so far, or at least lately with Texas. So that was a big win for Texas. I think David Pierce realized beating Texas A&M was a big deal. That's why you saw LBJ get the start. That's why you saw Zane Morehouse come in to save the game. He wanted to win this game, and I like that. I want to win every game, but if you're Texas and you only have one shot at Texas A&M every single year in baseball, which this is all going to change here soon, but that's the way it's been lately, you want to go win that game. Just for bragging rights, for recruiting, I think there's a lot of positives that can come out of winning that stupid midweek game. And generally, I would say these midweek games, they don't really matter. But I think a midweek game against a team like Texas A&M that had a really good season last year, came into the season this year expecting a lot, and who up until recently had been ranked the entire season, I think winning that game means something, and I'm glad he kind of pulled all the stops to win that game. I think Texas A&M did everything they could to try to win that game as well. So I don't think either one of these teams went into that game thinking, this is just a Tuesday game. It's no big deal. The crowd was crazy there at College Station. It was a packed house at College Station for this game. Nice game. Good win for Texas. 5-2 again over Texas A&M. Now let's kind of talk about the rest of the season. All year long, the theme on this show has been, I think this team is probably a 500 team. This team reminds me more of the 2019 Texas Longhorns than they do the 2020 or 2021 Texas Longhorns or 2018 Texas Longhorns. I thought, just the way they were playing, especially early on, that it's a 500 team heading into the homestand. After the beginning of that homestand, as we worked up to Big 12 play, I started to be a little cautiously optimistic. I thought, maybe this team does have something for Texas Tech, and maybe this team does have something for Texas A&M and Oklahoma State next weekend. It's been a great run so far, and I'm still cautiously optimistic. I'm no longer frustrated watching this team. It's very fun to watch this team, although they still make mistakes. They still have a problem with base running. And I think that's I don't know what it is about it. I couldn't point to anything and say this is what this is what David Pierce does that makes his teams struggle on the bases. But his teams the last couple of years, and maybe since he's been at Texas, have struggled on the bases. They make bad decisions on the bases. Anyway, I feel like as we head into the second series with Oklahoma State this weekend, second Big 12 series with Oklahoma State this weekend, I feel like this team is definitely different offensively. The pitching, I've been talking about the pitching all year. It's looked really good. It's kept them in low-scoring games. They haven't won all those games, but nobody is running away with games to this point against Texas. And I think that is what you need in college baseball. The pitching is going to always beat the batting. The defense is going to always beat the offense in college baseball. And so now this team looks like it could be a player in the Big 12. I don't want to put the cart before the horse or anything like that, but they swept Tech. If they could if they can take the series against Oklahoma State, they really only have one more tough series in 3 or 4 weekends with TCU. TCU's heading up to Lubbock this weekend to play Tech. It could be that this weekend we have a really clear picture about what the Big 12 is going to look like. Texas Tech sweeps TCU maybe, or wins that series against TCU. They put themselves firmly in that sort of second place to this point. If Texas can go in and win the series against Oklahoma State, then they'll be still sitting in first place. So, I don't know. We'll see what we get this weekend. We'll see how it all shakes out. Texas right now has 4 guys hitting over 300, which is really good. You got Peyton Powell at 416, Eric Kennedy at 374, Porter Brown at 363, and Guillemette at 314. So he's brought his average up significantly the last 5 games since the last time we talked about Texas baseball. And now you got 2 guys approaching 300. Jack O'Dowd's at 284. Dylan Campbell slowly but surely starting to get hot. He's at 266. And then the only regular that's in the lineup that's hitting under 200 at this point is Rylan Galvan. Again, we talked about how he catches probably once a weekend. He DHs the other 2 games. His average is not great, but he's got some pop. He's starting to get some power. 2 solo home runs against Tech in 2 different games. I think that's hard to ignore. Duplantier is probably the other option there at DH, the younger brother Duplantier, and he's got a better average, but not as much power. So I don't know. We'll see who trots out this weekend for David Pierce at the DH. I kind of think he's going to stick with what he's rode with so far. Again, Texas is on the road in Stillwater this weekend. Games at 6 o'clock Friday night, 6 o'clock Saturday night, and 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon on ESPN Plus. Make sure you guys check those out. I know I'll be checking those out. This weekend's going to be really pretty, so I'll probably check those out on the patio outside. But yeah, looking back from the beginning of this season to where this team is today, tremendous improvement, and it's really been on the offensive side. I think they still have there's some holes in that bullpen, but there's a lot of really good arms. And if some of those guys that are a little bit inconsistent can get back to that consistency or get to some consistency, they're going to be tough. Right now, they can trot a lot of guys out of the bullpen that can get a lot of outs. And again, if you can get that entire group pitching that way, they're going to be real, real tough. So congratulations to David Pierce and the Texas Longhorns. To this point in the season, they've got themselves set in a really good spot. Things are looking really good. We'll see how they do against Oklahoma State this weekend. Speed up baseball. Just thought I would bring this up. There's been all this talk about speeding up baseball. Got to speed it up. Got to speed up the MLB game because nobody's watching it. Can't sell tickets, blah, blah, blah. So what do we see the other day? We see an umpire toss a catcher for sticking his glove up and taking it away when he didn't immediately put the ball in his glove. I have no, speeding the game up aside, which some of y'all may be saying to yourselves, why is he even talking about this and speeding up the game? It has nothing to do. Well, I believe it does because there was a whole lot of arguing going on, a whole lot of discussion going on after this umpire tossed Real Muto, however you say his name. That's the craziest shit I've ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen a more ridiculous ejection in a sporting event than that. The funny thing was, and I didn't see it live, but I did see some commentary on it, and it seemed like that during a foul ball before, the umpire threw the ball back or threw the next ball to the pitcher. And so from a catcher's perspective, your habit is to just reach up and reach for a ball. And probably what went through his head was, oh, that's right. He's just going to throw the ball at himself. So he put his hand down. And even if he was being a dickhead and put his hand up to take it away, how is that worthy of an ejection? How is that worthy of slowing the game down to eject somebody, deal with all the bullshit that goes with an ejection? I don't know. I'm upset. I don't know. That was the most. I don't know how that guy can be an umpire ever again for a Major League Baseball game. What do you guys think on that? That's just my opinion. I'm sick of officials. I'm sick of calls happening at pivotal points in games that they wouldn't have called the entire rest of the game. I'm sick of not calls happening during pivotal points of games where it's obvious that there is a foul or a penalty or should be an ejection in baseball. They got to do better. And if they could do better with that stuff, maybe we speed the game up a little bit and we don't have all these 4-hour baseball games that you people are bitching and moaning about. Join us tomorrow. We'll do From the Cheap Seats, the first edition of From the Cheap Seats. That's going to be our football series. Talk about spring football for the Texas Longhorns. 2024 recruiting. There was a big recruiting weekend last weekend. And again, 3 reasons why Texas could be better in the SEC than they were in the Big 12. We'll talk about that. I'll find some other crap to talk about too. Subscribe to the podcast anywhere you listen to the podcast. If you don't want to go listen to it someplace, you can find it directly at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click on the bell to get notifications. You can find me on TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook at Horntakes. Email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. Welcome. You guys have a good weekend.